Marketing for business has changed. Come find out how right now on the Leadership Voice. Welcome to the Leadership Voice. I'm your host, Jay Barbuto. Today's show is about marketing in the new normal, and we have two great professionals and a professor of marketing to show us the way. Joining us today is Gia Ly, CEO of Arrow GTP, and Chris Connolly, Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer of the San Diego Padres. We also have a leadership lesson being delivered by Professor Chiranjeev Kohli. Let's start things off with today's quote of the day. Today's quote comes from tech marketing guru Joe Chernov. Good marketing makes the company look smart. Great marketing makes the customer feel smart. Let me introduce our first guest, Gia Ly. Gia is the Chief Executive Officer of Arrow GTP, a multicultural marketing, branding, and public relations agency with clients in the private and public sectors. Her professional experience also spans several industries, including technology, restaurant, insurance, and nonprofit. She is the immediate past chair of the Vietnamese American Chamber of Commerce, board member of the CSUF Auxiliary Services Corporation, and board or advisory member of several public and nonprofit organizations. Please welcome a great person, one of my favorites, Gia Ly. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Jay. Thank you for having me.
Gia, it's so great for you to be on the show to share some of your marketing wisdom. A lot of folks may not know what roles you play and the way that you're helping businesses in the private and public sector to really succeed and reach their customers. Could you share a little bit more about some of the things you do?
Sure. Well, just like you introduced earlier, my company, Arrow GTP, is in that multicultural marketing. And so our team is multilingual, multicultural, multi-talented, and multifaceted. And we multitask here and there.
Lots of multis.
So as we are deeply rooted in Orange County and Southern California at large. So therefore, we're very well versed in especially Vietnamese, because this is the largest Vietnamese population outside of Vietnam. Here, actually, right here in our backyard. So we're well versed in the Vietnamese language and culture and nuances, and well connected in the Vietnamese community. So therefore, with that said, when we help company large, especially public and nonprofit organizations, we help them not just market out to, but it's reciprocal. We also help them connect with their target audience.
And so, how important is marketing to these sometimes smaller organizations, maybe growing organizations, maybe startup companies? How important is marketing to their success?
Marketing is an important and very essential part of your business plan. So most of the folks segment it out and say, oh, it's on the side, sometimes it's an afterthought. And I've seen that with smaller organizations and smaller businesses because, everyone is budget conscious. So they think, well, I don't have to do that now because they think marketing is advertisement only or spending a lot of money only. But, it's like a triangle of three different pillars. You have time, resources, and budget.
Oh, wow. So I have to ask how things have changed during the pandemic, because I know that you've been a marketing professional and you've been helping businesses and companies for many, many years. But then the pandemic came, and how did marketing change during the pandemic?
Yeah. So we've seen in the last 2 years, what happened was, what was the big topic? Social distancing. Physically, like we are right now. Is this 6 feet?
Yes, it is. Okay. It's exactly 6 feet.
Exactly. So what it means that people would turn into other, mediums, right? To connect. We are humans after all. We have to connect at a certain level. So more virtual interaction. And so people turn to that. So more physical distancing means more online, connection. And so that's what I've seen that the trend is going, really.
And so as we move forward and we think about how marketing for businesses is going to look now, moving forward, what are some of the trends you're seeing for what marketing is going to look like in the new normal? Are you starting to see some paths?
Right. So at first, everyone was very shocked as far as completely disrupting the in-person action and move completely, online. But now that 2 years later, we're used to it, and people are more comfortable, well, first of all, with the technology, with the tools that we're using, and with the behaviors and the actual interaction. So I see people are more comfortable and like that because it's, that's time saving, cost saving. There's a lot of different savings, component to it, right? So the trend, as I said, we're not going to be fully in person all the time. There's no back to where it was, but we still need that. So it's going to be a hybrid type of interaction. We'll see a lot more hybrid event, hybrid tools that we're using, and that's where it's going to stay. And people are more consumer are even more demanding as far as instant responses, right, and more innovation in the digital space that we live in now.
Let's talk about the digital space. How are you helping businesses better utilize social media platforms and things like that to help them move ahead and help them succeed?
Right. So I tend to, I would tend to always use a metaphor of online and offline. So ultimately, the fundamental value, the tools, the concepts are still the same. You still have to connect at certain, have a lot of meaningful connection at a certain level. And then you're just using additional tools to help you. Obviously, social media is going to, is here. It is going to stay. It's not a fad as far as, people are utilizing that to really put the right messages out there, right? But when they use those forms, they still have to keep in mind that the messaging has to resonate with their target audience.
So let's talk about cultural diversity and how important that can be for businesses and the success of businesses in their marketing.
I'm really glad you said diversity and inclusion. That is a huge, component of a lot of organizations and even enterprises are going through nowadays. And I know it's been said before, but actions are required now. So that's what consumers want to see. They don't want lip service only. They want you to actually follow through, what you said you would do. And it has to be relevant. And it has to, like I said, have to be relevant and resonate with what they are feeling, especially with their morals and their values.
Oh, that's great. So if you had the opportunity, and you do right now, to advise an upstart business, a startup, or an early, a company that's relatively new, what advice would you give a company as they're setting out and when they want to succeed? What kind of marketing advice would you give to all new businesses?
Right. And I want to circle back to that multicultural market that we're talking about. So according to the CMO, which is the Chief Marketing Officer Council, in their recent study, 88% of millennial consumers said that they choose the brand, they consider anything based on the multicultural representation that they see. And they want to see that. They want to see that in the mirror, right? They want to see that in themselves. So you keep with that in mind. Right now, we know the U.S. population is huge. As far as I want to say about 70+% that are identified as multicultural, ethnically, or verbally, or however, it is under 6% that is the spending that are the entities are actually spending on the multicultural market. So that's a huge untapped market out there that is that's being overlooked. So therefore, keep with that in mind and embrace it. And like I said, truly put it into actions.
We're starting to see more and more companies that are embracing diversity and inclusion, and it's becoming a competitive advantage for them in the marketplace. Could you talk about how that trend is starting to really take take notice in industries.
Right, like I said, when they say trend, it sounds like it's something that this hot topic right now. It has a short time span and or is going to die. It is not a trend. So it is something that we have to consider is a huge part of our marketing plan, our business plan, and something that they have to definitely look into the long term, built into the long term vision and their missions and all that, and actually put it into very meaningful and purposeful, purpose-driven kind of action, so that you can achieve the actual ROI that you are looking to.
So really, all marketing plans need to have some elements of diversity and inclusion to really optimize the full potential.
Correct.
Oh, that's great. So the last piece is, if a company were starting out and if they want to succeed, what kinds of questions would you say would be good questions for companies to be asking themselves to make sure that they have good marketing plans and make sure that they have a good marketing approach? What are some questions businesses should continuously ask themselves? I know you've often said there's not one size fits all.
Of course.
So what kinds of questions should companies be asking themselves?
Localization, meaning that no matter small or large, and especially that we are now in an even more connected world than ever, right? Information travels very quickly. Which means that someone else in Australia or in Vietnam right now could receive the same message, and we will share certain values too. However, when it comes to marketing, they have to actually look into that segmentation and of what that local market it needs, and identify and align their values with that. So they should be asking those questions. Say, hey, what are my local markets?
So having some kind of congruence or some shared values of the values of the company, the values of the leaders of the company, and how those might be aligned with the values of the community, values of their customers, that becomes a big part of their success.
I want to actually mention something that we haven't touched base on.
Sure.
And then they overlook community. So community doesn't mean ethnic community only. It means what space are you in? What is your target audience? What sector are you in? What is that community? Are you in a tech community, a sport community, and in certain communities of colors, right? So therefore you have to think and be an active participant in that community. So ask yourself, what community am I in? What space is that? And how do I want to identify it? And how do my, the target consumers identify themselves in that community?
Well, thank you, Gia. It's been great to have you on the show. And we're going to have you come back in just a few minutes to join us for our panel discussion. Because Chris Connolly will be back on, and the three of us will have a few additional
I'm excited to be in the panel with Chris. So
well, terrific.
Thank you.
It's now time for a featured segment of the Leadership Voice. It's today's Did You Know? Today's Did You Know comes from Statista.com. Did you know that spending on marketing services in the U.S. surpassed $250 billion in 2021? This includes PR, direct mail, event sponsorships, telemarketing, sales promotion, and directories. It's now time for our Leadership Countdown. Today's Leadership Countdown comes from Adobe.com. We bring you the top 5 social media sites small businesses and marketing teams should care about for 2022. Number 5, TikTok. Number 4, Twitter. Number 3, Facebook. Number 2, YouTube. And the number 1 social media site that businesses should care about, Instagram. So, if your company isn't leveraging these social media platforms, you may be missing out. Stick around, we have Chris Connolly in the studio coming up right after this commercial break.
We found here at Honda Center and the Anaheim Ducks that the Center for Leadership brings expertise in doing research, in doing training. The faculty that has come and given the training to our employees does all the research themselves. They're not pulling this information off the shelf. They're out there researching themselves, talking from firsthand experience, and it brings such a level of competency that we, again, don't find from other trainers that are on the market.
Well, simply put, is what really differentiates and distinguishes Fullerton and the Center for Leadership, really is your expertise. You guys are able to create customized content for our business based on true research.
The faculty from Cal State Fullerton, obviously they're professors of their field. They have deep knowledge and research, but also, aside from the theory, they really bring in some practical examples, and they bring in a lot of interactive activities.
The Bringing Learning to Work initiative is our way of meeting the needs of Orange County businesses and communities. When our clients ask the Center for Leadership to come to bring learning to work, the clients know that they're getting cutting-edge information, the latest thinking in the field, but they're also getting world-class training. Welcome back to the Leadership Voice. Our next guest is Chris Connolly. He joined the San Diego Padres in February 2021 as Senior Vice President of Marketing. In his role with the organization, Connolly oversees all aspects of the Padres' marketing, content, advertising, broadcast, in-game entertainment, and fan engagement. Prior to joining the Padres, Connolly spent 12 years working for Disney in a variety of roles, including Senior VP of Marketing for both Disney Movie Studio as well as Disney Consumer Products. Please welcome great person and a board member at the Center for Leadership, Chris Connolly.
Hey, Jay, how are you doing?
Chris, it's so great to have you on the show today to share some of your marketing wisdom with our audience.
Thanks for having me. This will be fun.
Well, let's start by letting people know a little bit more about what you do. So what is it that a market, what goes into the marketing of a professional sports team?
Well, you know, you're certainly marketing the sports team on the field or on the court, but I think at the end of the day, you're really marketing the overall experience. Like, for example, where the Padres play, Petco Park has been repeatedly voted the most popular ballpark in America. So when it comes to that, Jay, I want to market the baseball team, but the electric environment inside the venue, but then just all the great San Diego food and beverage, all the local IPAs. So I'm really, I think, marketing the experience at the end of the day, not just the sports team on the field.
And so when you have a stadium that is so well regarded, it becomes its own tourist attraction, doesn't it?
It really does. In the summer months, obviously San Diego is a big hotbed of tourism during the summertime. About half of our single game tickets during the summer months are tourists coming to a Padres game from out of town. So that's a whole different facet of our marketing plan, getting tourists excited to come visit us as well as the local.
So they might say, oh, I want to go see this, I want to do this, and they go to Petco Park.
That's right, because if they have the beach and the zoo on their list, I want to make sure the Padres is on that.
Yeah, they need to go get some good Italian food too, and there's lots of things there. So a lot of folks who might be thinking about different kinds of careers, or am I in the right career, what does it take to really succeed in marketing? Like, what type of person should go into marketing?
That's a good question. You know, I think at the end of the day, really being confident in yourself is just critical. Being a strong leader, I've really done all I've been able to do the last 5 to 10 years, really learning more about leadership, reading about leadership, listening to leadership podcasts. I think you have to be an exceptional leader to really go into marketing long term. So I've really tried to hone that craft. Certainly being knowledgeable about marketing, but I think at the end of the day, it's confidence in yourself and really being a strong leader. I think those are the two keys.
And when you were describing it, you were also describing that to be successful in marketing, you need to be continuously learning and
absolutely
and growing.
Curious. Our former Disney CEO, Bob Iger, thought curiosity was one of the most important traits of a leader. And I have always liked reading articles or investigating things online. I used to work for a toy company many years back. I'd go into Toys R Us on the weekends, into Chuck E. Cheese's and bowling alleys. I was curious as to what my target audience, what were children doing on the weekends? What were they playing with? What were they experiencing? So I think you have to be really curious about the industry you work in.
Oh, that's great. So We got to look at the bad side of that. And what type of person maybe is not cut out for marketing, or what would be an indicator that maybe marketing's not going to end up being a really successful path for them?
Yeah, I think you can certainly be an introvert. That's fine. It's okay to be a quiet leader. I would say most marketers tend to be extroverted, but you can be an introvert, you can be a quiet leader, but at the end of the day, again, going back to your prior question, I really think you have to have the confidence in your leadership skills. We talked earlier how the baseball lockout ended yesterday between the players and the owners, and we had a very busy afternoon yesterday with the San Diego Padres marketing team. There's a lot of eyes on me, a lot of eyes on my leadership team. You really have to have the confidence in yourself to implement those plans when those days arrive. And yesterday was a big day for us.
So marketing a professional sports team, it must be an amazing experience. And when the pandemic came, that must have just thrown a wrench in everything that you might have been doing from a marketing standpoint.
It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. But at the end of the day, sports venues, theme parks, you have to always, even before the pandemic, you have to always assure your guests, your fans of their safety, and that their safety is paramount and the top priority of the Padres. But it became even more important during the pandemic that when people came out to the ballpark, even in limited capacity, that their safety was top of mind with us. And you really had to overtly message that to make fans feel comfortable about returning to the ballpark when we reopened.
And so we've come, I wouldn't say that we're out of the pandemic, but we're at this point where we're starting to see the path, or we're starting to see the horizon
Yes.
of maybe what things might start to become. This new normal. It's never going to go back to the way it used to be, but this new normal. So how is marketing on professional sports teams going to look in the new normal?
It'll be interesting. I think one thing, not just for sports, but for many industries, I think the notion of Monday through Thursday being weeknights and Friday through Sunday being weekends, I think that may be no longer the case, because with so many hybrid work models, people working from home, a Tuesday night may be more convenient to go to a movie or come to the ballpark to see the Padres than maybe a Saturday night, because everyone's at home. Let's just run down and catch a Padres game on a Tuesday night when the day ends at home. So I don't know if there's going to be the traditional weekdays versus weekends as we come out of this. That'll be interesting to see. It's also really difficult, Jay, to forecast demand right now, not only with baseball and the Padres, but all sorts of industries. There's so much pent-up demand right now to travel, to get outside, to go to baseball games. People have had cabin fever now for several years. They want to get out and travel and do things and bicycle and go to baseball games. It's going to be difficult to forecast what our attendance may be in the year ahead using historical models. And I'm sure I'm sure it's true for a lot of other industries as well.
Oh, absolutely. It's got to be. So what are some other things that you see changing as you think about how the Padres are going to be marketed moving forward? Are there some other things that folks should look forward to that they might not have otherwise expected to see?
Well, we've got such an amazing lineup. We've got a number of all-star players. We have a brand new coach, Bob Melvin, who I think is going to bring great leadership to the team. But we have the most exciting player in the sport in Fernando Tatis, our 22-year-old shortstop. So just really excited to take Fernando and all the stars on the team and really get San Diegans excited to come out to the park in 2022. And just based on the response yesterday, I think with COVID starting to end and this baseball lockout concluding yesterday, my phone was blowing up with text messages. I think San Diego, and I'm sure a lot of the country, is excited to get back out to the ballpark here real soon.
Yeah, the new normal is going to be an amazing thing, and your role as head of marketing of that. It's so interesting when you describe how you, in a way, you're marketing the stadium, you're marketing the team,
Yep.
You're marketing players on the team, and the experience of what it means to be a fan. It's such an interesting set of layers.
Yes. That's very similar to what we did at Disneyland when I helped lead Disneyland marketing. It was no different there. We were always marketing the Disneyland experience. It wasn't necessarily the cheeseburger or our roller coaster. There were scarier roller coasters at competitors' theme parks, but the Disneyland experience is second to none, as you know, right here in our backyard at Cal State Fullerton. And so if I can bring some of that Disney experience to the Padres and really let people come out and experience Padres baseball, and at the end of the game say, wow, we really had a great time. Let's come back to a Padres game. That was really a lot of fun. I want to do that again. That's really my goal, that fan reaction as they exit the stadium each night.
And the fan experience is part of your role in your marketing role as well.
Yes, critical, absolutely critical to make sure that that fan has an exceptional experience.
Oh, that's terrific. So we're now at the point of our interview where we want to ask you for some pearl of wisdom. What advice would you give a marketing professional that is interested in, taking it to that highest level, to become a chief marketing officer, to head up marketing?
Yeah.
What advice would you give someone either new to that role or that has aspirations for that type of role?
I think really building your own personal network or your own personal board of directors, people you can lean on outside of your team. Are there other marketing professionals that you really look up to outside your company? People you can network with and stay in touch with? Maybe your mother or your father is on your personal board of directors. Who are the individuals that you want to learn from and lean on as your marketing career grows? It's not something we can do on our own, and even within our own marketing team, we really need to look to the outside. And I've had a couple great mentors over the years, people not necessarily with Disney or not necessarily with my team, that I've always tried to touch base with several times throughout the year just for guidance and wisdom, to your point. It's really hard to be a marketing leader in any organization today, and to be at the top of the pyramid. You've got to look for outside help and guidance and expertise. So.
We've had the opportunity through the years to talk with so many folks who have had many different measures of success, and so many talk about the importance of developing advisors, developing mentors.
So critical.
Could you speak just briefly about the notion of people should have the humility to be open to other people's ideas, to learn and to grow?
Yeah. In baseball, since there's 30 teams dispersed throughout the country, we don't compete against each other. We all have our own geographic regions that we own. So in this new role, I was curious about what makes for a good baseball marketer. I had so much to learn, Jay, having only been in the role a little bit over a year. I called all of the most respected baseball marketers around the country with the Astros and the Red Sox and just said, I'm Chris, I'm new, I would love to learn from you. I mean, I'm a veteran marketer over my career, but I was new to this industry. I was new to baseball. So I really tried to reach out and learn from as many of the respected leaders as I could. And they were only too willing to help because we're not really viewed as competitors. Now you can't do that in every industry. You can't at Coke call Pepsi for advice, but in baseball it's a little bit unique, and they were very forthcoming and very candid and helped me out a lot get grounded here this first year.
Yeah, it makes sense. I would imagine that every franchise wants the other franchises to also succeed.
Absolutely. And if you have a best practice that you can share out, and hopefully that colleague returns the favor as well, there's a lot of sharing that goes on within the sports industry, both in football and basketball and baseball. The other teams try to help each other out from a best practices standpoint.
Great. So, Chris, we're going to stop the interview here, and I want to thank you for joining us on the show today. But I want you to stick around because we're going to do a panel discussion in just a few minutes.
Okay, good.
It's now time for our leadership example. Today's leadership example comes from Forbes.com. We bring you the 15 top trends that will impact marketing in 2022. It's now time for our leadership lesson. Today's leadership lesson is being delivered by Professor Chiranjeev Kohli.
I'm Dr. Chiranjeev Kohli, and here is today's leadership lesson. Let's start from the beginning. If we were to go back 50 years, marketers had all the power. When introducing new products, they would invest a lot of time and money building preference for their brands. The buyers didn't have easy access to information, and brands became proxy for quality. Once the brand image was embedded in the buyers' minds, marketers could recover their investment with a steady stream of profits when the market stabilized and stayed that way. That was the marketing model then. Fast forward to 15 years ago. Social media and smartphones had just started gaining popularity. Today, everyone has a smartphone and buyers have access to all the information they need on demand. They don't need to rely on marketers, but can instead use feedback from friends and reviews from strangers. So where does this lead? Here are the 4 takeaways. 1, we are now looking at a market that is increasingly transparent. The halo effect of the brand has dimmed because buyers can make more informed decisions. 2, successful marketers have to offer true value. This changes the basic marketing model I talked about earlier. The market is becoming more dynamic or volatile, if you'd rather use a negative term. New brands may have an easier time entering the market as long as they offer a higher value. So established brands will need to innovate continuously in tune with the technology changes, shifting needs of the market, and entry of new competitors. 3, going beyond that, with information being readily available, authenticity will be key. No tricks or gimmicks, please. Finally, buyers will increasingly outsource their purchase tasks, especially the mundane ones, to AI recommendation engines, which can suggest new products and brands based on buyers' past behavior and preferences. So it is important to partner with platforms like Google and Amazon. So, prepare for a transparent market, offer true value, be authentic, and partner with AI-based platforms. I'm Dr. Chiranjeev Kohli, and this has been your leadership lesson.
Thank you, Professor Kohli, for that informative leadership lesson. It's now time for our leadership panel. We have Chris and Gia back on the show. Thank you for joining us for the panel. Our first question, you'll each have a chance to answer each question. Our first question is about wisdom. What have you learned during your career in marketing that you wish you had known at the beginning? Chris, why don't you go first?
Oh, that's an easy one for me. I would say follow your passion, Jay. I started out in an industry other than marketing. I won't name that industry. On the second day in the workforce, I realized I wasn't going to enjoy this. I wasn't passionate about it. I was kind of looking at my watch to see when the day would end. So I learned that you've really got to be passionate about what you do. I loved playing with toys as a little boy. I worked for the Hasbro Toy Company for 10 years. I went to numerous games here at Cal State Fullerton, baseball games, because both my brothers played baseball at Santa Barbara. And I always just thought watching games, watching them play, if I could ever get involved in the sport of baseball to try to help it make this sport more exciting, more dynamic, I would love that opportunity someday on the marketing front. And it took me 30 years to get this role with the Padres, but dreams do come true, but I was following my passion every step of the way.
What about you, Gia? What have you learned during your career that you wish you had known at the beginning?
Definitely the passion part. That Chris knocked it out the ballpark with passion, and I completely agree. But to add to that, for me, is trust. Trust my own gut. Trust the people around me. Trust my team. Let people make their mistakes, and we all learn from it, and we are going to be better. So the trust is something that I'm still working on it every day, but I've gotten, it's got to where I'm at now, and I'm really glad that it took me, these years.
So, is it sometimes better for people to make a few mistakes along the way?
I know when I was starting out as a junior leader, I wasn't always the most trustworthy when it came to leading my team. And I think that's something you have to kind of hone over time and be comfortable in your own skin to trust and empower your team. That's
right.
something I've been doing much better in the latter half of my career. I wasn't always as good as that starting out.
That's true, yeah.
So let's have each of you share a mistake that you made in your career, and what that mistake was and how you learned from it and how it's made you better. Why don't you go first, Gia?
Sure. Trying to do it all, trying to do everything, and trying to be everything all at the same time. So it's not just for me personally, but it's also for my team. And that actually, translates into the work that we do for our clients as well. So we really need to find our niche or segment it, what I mentioned earlier, and really go from there versus trying to do everything.
Yeah, I guess you can't do everything or be great at everything.
Right.
So surrounding yourself with folks that can do parts.
Right. That is why I have that whole multi-talented team who will take on different parts and to make that make everything a whole.
Oh, that's great. What about you, Chris? What mistake have you made that you learned from and has helped make you a better marketing executive?
You know, Jay, earlier in my career, I worked in the packaged goods industry, and a vendor brought us this great loyalty program, and my brand could be a part of it, and it just sounded great on the surface, and the presentation slides looked wonderful, and I jumped right in, and it did not go well. It was not a successful program, and the big learning to me is I should have done much more due diligence. I should have done my homework. I should have talked to other packaged goods companies that had worked with this vendor. So that was a big mistake. That was really early in my career. But just this week, I saw another exciting idea from an outside vendor with the Padres. And my first question at the end of the first half-hour introductory meeting was, please give me 3 references of people that you currently work with. I'd like to talk to them in the same way I've just talked to you today. So I've learned from that mistake. You've really got to do your due diligence and do your homework, especially on big initiatives.
Now, if you hadn't learned that lesson, it's a type of idea where you might have said, yeah, let's do that.
That's what I did.
Right.
And I've got a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit in me, which is great, but you have to be careful that entrepreneurial spirit doesn't lead you to just say, that sounds great, let's do it, to your point. So
It's true, because in marketing, we tend to be very excited, right? We get excited and we get emotional on something and we want to take immediate action. That's kind of like our natural instinct to do that. But then we also have to take a step back and, like you said, due diligence is a big key.
Well, you want to say yes, because in marketing, isn't that part of the goal of what you want others to do, is to hear the message and say,
Right.
Yes.
It's more fun to say yes.
It is.
It is. So it's time for the final word. This is where each of you get a chance to share one final pearl of wisdom or advice for our audience. We'll have Chris go first. So Chris, what is your final word?
I would say I cannot emphasize to the viewers the importance of relationships enough. Before I joined Disney, midway through my career, I ran my own consultancy, Jay. And it was interesting. I would go out to try to sell my services to companies that didn't know me. No one wanted to work with me. They didn't know who I was. I ended up, my 4 biggest clients as a consultant were 4 people who trusted me because I'd worked with them previously, and they were close colleagues. So I had built those relationships, and they were happy to have me serve as a consultant for them. But if I didn't have those relationships, my family would have gone hungry when I was consulting. And it goes for all types of businesses, types of industries. Relationships are so critical. And you have to spend time each and every day building relationships. You can't put that as a priority B on the back burner. You've always got to be thinking about relationship building.
That is absolutely so true. Referrals and word of mouth, right? It goes to the whole trust and relationship, goes a long way. And it's actually the cheapest form of marketing.
Yes.
With the highest ROI.
Yes.
So, and it goes a long way.
You first have to have a relationship with someone first to build trust second. Trust will not come before the relationship. That strong relationship comes first. The trust comes second.
Right.
Terrific. So, Gia, it's your turn for the final word.
Right. And so, to add to that, right, the next one, and then not last, is run a marathon, don't sprint. So that's how your relationship should be as well. That's how your vision, your marketing plan, your business plan. You know, sustainability is big as if you want to achieve that towards the end. You gain the trust, you build your relationship, and you run the marathon. Look at the long haul. So.
Well, terrific. And there you have it, our final word. Thank you, Gia and Chris, for joining us on today's show. If you have a question or need advice, connect with us here at the Leadership Voice by email, leadershipvoice@fullerton.edu, or by Twitter at CSUF_leadership. Well, that's about all the time we have for today's show. Today we explored marketing in the new normal. Thank you to our guests Gia Ly and Chris Connolly for joining us, and also thank you to Professor Kohli for delivering today's leadership lesson. Join us each episode of the Leadership Voice as we bring you insights to guide your leadership development. I'm Jay Barbuto, and on behalf of the Center for Leadership at Cal State Fullerton, we'll see you next time right here on the Leadership Voice.